Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. In this episode, we're going to be doing some work on the brakes, the gas pedal, the skins, we're going to do some flooring, and a few other things. So let's get to work. So just a quick update on the Ultra4. We've had it on weight a few times now, and we're doing some more spring work. We did get the lower spring switched out, and math is a lot closer, but we are going to do one more spring change for both the upper spring and the lower spring, because as you see here, the upper's collapsed. So weight-wise, we have a little more weight on the front than we thought we did, which in some ways is a good thing because it's more balanced than we actually thought. So that's cool. We did start work on the brake caliper brackets, and I'll show you that here shortly. But as you see, the car is really starting to come together, and this thing's looking mean. We got some work done on the steering. We did get some of our hoses. We went with the super high pressure, the 5,000 PSI hoses, and crimp-on AN fittings. The only problem we're running into is we got a couple problems with these fittings, so we're actually going to 90 off it and then run it straight off that, and those will be here tomorrow, so we'll get that done. We got a bunch of little things we're going to do. Like I said, we're going to get this main floor panel made. I think we're going to make this back panel here, the one that goes behind the driver, and then what else? There's just a ton of little things that we got to go through on this car. We still got to add some kind of a brace, or skid for the fuel pump where we moved it to. And then we need to, well, there's a bunch of little things, but hopefully all goes well. We'll get the brakes bled tonight, get those brackets done, and just a ton of other stuff. We did find a new home for our Radial Dynamics power steering reservoir. We moved it to this side. It's got a little more bracing, but it actually works really well because now we can flow the line straight down to the pump, and the return line comes over the top, and it's not really sticking out of the way, and it works pretty well. So that is awesome. Definitely going to be fun. Can't wait to get this thing out. It's going to be doing some crazy stuff. And on another note, a couple people had a question where we got the chassis from. We actually built it from scratch. It started out as a pile of tubing on our trailer. So if you haven't seen where it started, go back to the beginning. I'll post a link up here. You can watch this build from the very beginning. Literally, we built this car. We started out with a pile of tubing and built from there. Everything's been built in-house or designed in-house. Not much has been really outsourced. We've tried to do a lot of it ourselves. So definitely check that out and start it back over. We're on part, shoot, I don't know, 2021, somewhere around there. Yeah, we've got a whole build on this thing from start to finish. So if you ever want to know what goes into an Ultra4, you can literally see this whole build from tube to hopefully track. From tube to track. There we go. I like it. We're going to get started on the brakes. We have a caliper bracket that we made. We'll kind of show you how we did that. We're going to get the Hydro Boost all finished up, get the brakes plumb, hopefully get them bled. I am going to work on getting this brake caliper and the brake setup over here, and then we'll duplicate it on the other side. The bracket's already made. So what I'm doing here is I've got to use a spacer for these lug nuts because they're a little bit too short for these studs without the wheel on. When the wheel is on, it takes up a chunk of space. So I'm going to put this on and make sure that this rotor is fully seated and squared up before I tack the bracket on the caliper on, because if not, it'll cause it to wear funny. You really want to make sure it's square. And to do that, we just make sure that we've got lug nuts on and everything is seated. Hello, rotor. This is a Wilwood GT32 trophy truck rotor. Ultra thick, vented. It is made to stop a vehicle. On our knuckle here, we added a, I don't know what you want to call this, but a mounting plate point. It was machined into it. Here you can see that. And these holes are 3/8 by 24 fine thread. And so what we did is we made a bracket here. This is going to bolt on that. And then the caliper, we are using a Wilwood 6-piston. This is the thick with the thick pads on it. I machined down some slugs here on the lathe. Oh, here we go. Here's one. So I machined down some slugs on the lathe. Super stiff and strong. This is actually the material we actually make shock shafts out of. So it was a good option for this. So machine that down to the size we need. And then this piece gets welded here at the specific height for the rotor. And then on the inside of this, we're going to use recessed bolts. So we'll add a chamfer or a recess to this so the bolt sits flush on that. And it all bolts on there. Just like that, our front caliper is mounted. So put a couple tacks here, gonna pull it off, weld it. Don't want to weld it on the knuckle itself. So we'll weld that and then we'll square it up. We'll probably check it 2 or 3 times as we weld it to make sure that nothing's warping. But as you can see, we've got perfect pad contact. There's no warpage. We can hear it's nice and smooth. I've done it before when I made a mistake. The calipers kind of, basically if you have it twisted, you can feel it when you're rotating it and it'll actually bind up. So we really want to make sure that's square. But this one wasn't too difficult because it was already built into the knuckle itself. And then we've already got our brake lines here coming off the center. That's going to go right there with some hold downs up here. And yeah, so I'm gonna pull this off, get it welded, and we'll check in with Joe. What are you doing down here?
I don't understand why.
Why what?
Why I can't get this bolt to start. It's so small. I don't have the grip. It's so tiny.
The bottom holes for the I think it's for the adjustment holes in the T case.
It might be.
Forgot the bolts, and there's a little bit of seepage there.
Yeah, something's
because the shifters come through there on the inside of the case, and that's what they kind of pop into. There's supposed to be 2 bolts, and I think we missed them, so
it's seeping out of there.
Drippy. The brake caliper bracket's all welded. It's tight. This thing is super tight on there, so should do a good job. Didn't need much up here, and I'm happy with that turned out. And we checking the brake line for the measurements of where it was going to go, and looks like everything is coming together well.
And I'm done too, if anybody cares.
Joe's over there working on his stuff. He's all happy. He fixed the problem, and you know. But truth be told, if he would have just checked it in the first place, it wouldn't have been a problem, right?
Always my fault.
So this guy, I actually have a little thing here. And we want to make sure that we have enough on this brake line so when it turns, which that's all the way there, it's still loose. And then when it comes back, it'll come in just like that. And then we'll check it at full droop. Actually, Joe, why don't you go ahead and let this axle down.
Oh, definitely no.
Yeah. So we need a little longer.
Well, it was a guess. It was a guess.
So we actually had these brake lines already from another project. Same AN-3. So we thought we'd give them a try, but you can't know these things until you actually have them hooked up. So these lines are just a hair short. We've got, I went online, ordered a couple new ones. They actually have these on Amazon Prime, the ones we use, so I can have them tomorrow. Not a problem.
Pretty sure that we have Amazon on speed dial.
Certain things, yeah. I mean, it just works, and especially when you need fittings or certain things, and they've got what you need. I'm not a big fan of Amazon, to be honest with you, but sometimes it's handy. But yeah, you can see right here, this line's already tight. We're not at full bump, and yeah, too short. So we are, however, going to tighten everything up because it can sit level, because we want to find out to make sure we're not having any issues up here. If you saw in our video 2 video goes, put the link right there. Yeah, we got to custom make some banjo bolts. So we want to get that tested. So I'm going to get the brake caliper on that side all set up. Joe's going to go around, tighten up all the hoses, make sure they're good to go. Then we'll put some fluid in and start pumping it.
Pressurize.
Okay, so Daniel's working on the brakes. I am going to start designing this panel right here across the back. It's going to be probably 2 panels, one top, one bottom one, with some mesh on that side so that there's a little airflow for the engine. And then the other one we need to work on, hopefully tonight, is going to be down here where the accelerator pedal mounts. So I'm going to measure that up and get right back to you. So it doesn't look like much, but that's the backsplash right there, all drawn up.
Backsplash? What is it, sink?
Or backsplash, or you know what? I don't know what we're calling it, but it's the rear firewall. That's what we'll call it. It's technically the front firewall because the engine's in the back of the car.
Rear upper fascia panel.
Say that again. Yeah, rear upper fascia panel. I don't know. And then right here, a floor plan. Floor plan. I keep saying floor plan. Floor pan. But that ought to give you an idea. It's cardboard. Stop it.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes?
Yeah.
You're late? All right. So what we'll do is we'll...
Brakes are on. So we're going to get the brake system filled up. We're going to start pumping. We're going to see how it does and pressurize the system. We are going to have to change the brake lines, but we need to know if our master cylinder setup is going to work. So I'd rather know that now, and then we can drain the fluid back out. And even when we change the lines, we're not going to lose that much fluid. So we're going to go ahead and fill it up, pressurize, and check it out. For those who are asking, we are using Redline RL600 fluid. It's a high-performance synthetic for track and street use. We are going to use the pneumatic brake bleeder. The way this works is it shoots air, and then as the air is going through here, it pulls fluid into here. And what this does, you got a can here that pressurizes, and so any brake fluid that comes out of the caliper, this little guy goes on the bleeder, and any fluid that comes out of it gets put into here. So this not only saves your fluid, it also keeps from making a mess, and we're going to use it. And the cool thing is the fluid you catch in here, you can just dump right back in the master cylinder.
What you want.
It's a good consistent pedal too. It's squishy.
We know it's working because it does stops.
And yes, that's just Joe's massively strong.
We can do
biceps.
it. I'll put the tire on it and I'll show you.
So far, really happy with everything. Got a lot of air out of the system. Big good news. The banjo bolts, everything seems to have worked perfect up here. Ultimately, we'll know once we get the Hydro Boost plumbed. Those fittings will be here tomorrow. We have all the lines, just need a couple more fittings. So we'll have that tomorrow, and then once we are able to fire it up with the pressure from that to double check that. I mean, ultimately, with the Hydro Boost, does it give more pressure or it
gives more pressure and takes the place of a standard vacuum booster.
Yeah, that makes sense. But either way, we'll check that when those come in. So that's all the brake stuff. So we're gonna get all this cleaned up, and then Joe got the measurements, and we worked together to design the panel for the backsplash. So we're gonna go over to the plasma table and cut that out now. Joe, what are you doing up there?
Holding down the aluminum. Hurry up and cut. I'm liking this here.
What?
This. I don't have to worry about the radiator getting.
Good, so I keep stabbing it.
I know. I mean, that's gonna fit, but I think we're going 2 panels on it. We got the brakes bled, got the brackets built on the brakes. So we got the brakes bled, brackets made for the front calipers, got the floor plan drawn out, got the rear fascia, as Daniel calls it, drawn up. System pressurizes. Seems like it's going to stop. We'll find out when we get this thing driving.
Better stop. They're all very expensive brakes.
Yeah.
You could buy a car for the amount of money. This
As usual, things just took a little longer than we had planned. But Daniel's going to pick this up tomorrow because I won't be here.
Lazy bum.
I know, right?
All right, I'm going through all these fittings, and actually I'm a couple fittings short still. They didn't come in today. I thought they'd be here. So I guess they're supposed to be here tomorrow, so we'll get that wrapped up. Let me show you what I'm doing and what's going on. All right, so the first thing we're working on is the Hydro Boost here, and we have these 3 fittings. This is the pressure in from the power steering pump. This is the pressure out, and this is the pressure relief. So what we had forgot to take into consideration originally was right here where these guys go. If you go straight on these fittings, it sticks up really high, and I'm not even gonna bother threading on, but it just, you can't do it right. So what we're doing is we're adding an additional 90 here. So it's still gonna stick up a little bit, and we'll adjust the hood so it can do a more natural flow. And actually we can tuck that, yeah, just like that. So there's no pressure on this hose. It'll sit right above this nut when it's tight, and this hose is still nice and flexible, so it'll go that way. The other thing I guess I didn't think about, we need a 90 on this one too, because coming off that, that's sticking really high up too. This will have a 90-degree fitting here. And then lastly, we have our other hose here, and the same thing. If we were to go right off the fitting, this is going to be a gigantor issue. So we're going to come have a 90 there, so at 90s, and this will come straight off the side, tuck in, and we have nice sweeping fittings coming off the Hydro Boost. Coming down here to the underside of the car, you saw us mount up the pressure relief valve. Now, I'm just playing with some things here, but basically we have to tee from the Hydro Boost and this pressure relief back to the filter here. So I picked up, let me get this up, oops. I picked up a T here, a bulkhead T, and then this will have a nut that gets welded to, or it has a nut on it, and then a tab that gets welded so I can mount that wherever. But I'm working on a couple different ideas here. I was originally going to mount it off a union on the pressure relief valve, but I don't like that. So I'm going to tuck it down here so that, again, all the hoses kind of have a natural flow to it. They're not being kinked, they're not forced where they're at. And then this will go, basically, it'll tuck down in there like so. Then we have a fitting. You can kind of see that there. Let me see if I can get this to focus better. Kind of down there. And then that will run to that fitting via hose. So then both our pressure relief, low pressure fitting or lines are connected together. And they all make their way back to the pump or the reservoir eventually, because both the low pressure come into the filter right here. So you can see that. And then out of the filter and then up to the reservoir over there. And then we have two fittings. You can kind of see that there on the oil filter coming into it. This side is the low pressure side. I'm sorry, this side is the low pressure side, the smaller fitting. Then we have a bigger fitting that is the return, because after it comes out of the servo, you can't even see that. Well, either way, it goes to the Hydro Boost to the servo for the steering, and then it comes to our cooler here, runs through the cooler to cool the fluid, and then up to the oil filter, and then all the way back around to the reservoir. So we've got a lot going on with this system because the engine is in the back. Obviously, we have a lot more hose than usual. Well, test fitting, everything is going together. I changed this guy to a 90 on the crimp side because I have 191 straight. So changed that up here. It actually allows it to sit a little bit lower. And now, if we look, the hood line, it's not, well, it's not too bad. That's manageable. So we're only coming up a little bit higher than we had planned, but yeah, that'll work. So, and then we'll come in here, and there's still plenty of slack in there for us to be able to tie everything up. And we'll probably, I don't know, I'm still debating a tube down the middle of this. But regardless, these all have something that kind of hold them in place and keep them from moving around too much. So the interesting thing is the way I did this, all I have left is now, because I took the 90s off here, I just got to connect the hoses here, and the steering system is now plumbed. So we can actually fill this thing up soon and test it out. So one thing I have to do though, since we moved everything, and we know where it's going, I've got to weld the bracket here that holds on the hydraulic cooler. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the cooler off, get that burned in, and then I've got to move on to, real quick, these TK shifters. The other night when we were putting them in, we didn't realize, it's kind of hard to tell here, but basically where this tab is behind it, the bolt hits the tube and bolt broke off. So I've got to get that bolt out and then get the TK shifters mounted, because I got to make sure everything down here is clearing, because there's a bunch of randomness. So I'm gonna get this welded out real quick. Pretty safe to say it's not going anywhere. We got to make sure we leave the slots for the hose clamp to go through. The TK situation has been rectified. To make life a little easier, I went ahead and welded on To make things a little easier, I went ahead and welded on some studs. I cut down some 1/4-inch bolts, threaded them in, and then welded them on the back side here. So now they're permanently in place, so we won't have any issues with them hitting the tube. And when you put the shifter on, it'll make it a little easier because you lift it up and you hook it on this and put a nut on it instead of trying to fight a bolt while holding all this in place, because it's a little tricky. So finished up one other situation here. We had some different fittings here, and we were using a Y for the dual pumps, but we ended up switching it, and so switched this out to a 90, cleaned it up a little better, and also made a longer hose so it runs down to the pump without issue. So that is done as well. Next up on the list, I'm going to work on the floor. Man, Joe's got me saying that too. Floor pan. So he's already got a template down here. I'm gonna double check it and see if there's any changes I want to make to it and verify it. And then we're gonna take the floor pan template and transfer it over to the plasma table, cut it out. Covered in aluminum. This stuff is just nasty. So I've got the panel roughed in. Still needs some work, obviously. I gotta add some little slots down there for seatbelt panel and a couple things. And then I've got to add, I'm gonna have an extended panel coming up that way. And then I've got to shape it exactly to the car, but we're almost there. Aluminum panels are never fun. The good thing about this car is that's really the only one that's going to be super tricky. The rest of everything is already done, or it's pretty flat. We'll have a flat panel coming up the side right there so that it can direct the air from the transmission cooler that's going to be blowing. You can see the fan there, so it'll kind of basically blow it and push it out of the car because that panel is vented on that side. All right, it is now tomorrow. Today is now tomorrow. Joe hates when I say that, but I like it. Anyways, so I'm gonna get the accelerator cable, the whole bracket assembly. I'm gonna knock that out. A couple of our fittings came that we needed to finish the steering. So I'm gonna do one last check over on that. I've got to make a bracket or something for the reservoir. I can't remember. So I'm gonna finish that out. And unfortunately, it's a little bit too late to crank up the car tonight, but we should have brakes, steering, gas pedal, everything by tomorrow. So we should be running and driving. That means it'll be time to finish up the wiring, just clean it all up and get on the dyno. Okay, so right now I'm moving back to the throttle cable. We got to make a bracket that bolts there and attaches on there. So I'm going to take some measurements and start working on that. Well, that turned out pretty good. Cleaned up nice, super strong, and if I pull on the other end of the cable, I see no deflection at all. I might look in where it's hitting on the bottom there, right here. I might slim that up a little bit, but yay! Now all we gotta do is hook it to the gas pedal. On this side, the Heim attaches to one of these, depending on position. With this one, because of being lower, we'll probably mount to the bottom one. I actually got to get a bolt for that. That thing's tiny. I don't know if I have a bolt. But the good thing is, the way it's set up, I can do it right here. I just got to make a tab for this and weld it on there. And that's it. Super easy. So that's much easier than the intake side. And this is why we keep everything. I had this tab sitting there, already had a 1/2-inch hole drilled in it, and I just grounded a little bit to fit the 1-inch tube. I cut a slot in it to fold this back because that's too small for the dimple die. So now I'm going to weld that, and that will be our tab for the cable. Okay, good news, bad news. The bad news is I've got to change this tab. The pedal throw, here, check this out. The pedal throw here, when it was down on the bottom, for me to open the throttle body, I was having to go all the way flat like that, which is just that's too much pedal there all the way down. So what I'm gonna do is raise it up to this top one and then change my tab up here. So now where it's at, the pedal only has to go, it's kind of hard to hold it, but basically it's only gotta go about right there for full throttle versus down there. So just typical lever, further down the lever, further you gotta go, but easy adjustment. So I'm gonna knock this tab off. And just like that, we have a new bracket. So put a dimple die in it. Then we added a little bit of a bend here to straighten it up, but this is definitely bigger, stronger, and should work good. The pedal is now much better. By moving it to this top hole, can't really see, but we're not getting to the stop. There's an adjuster right here that comes towards the pedal, so the pedal will stop on that adjuster. And the idea is you want to set it to where the adjuster here stops and this stops at the same time. There's hard stops on both the throttle body and the brake pedal right there. So you adjust that so they both stop at the same time. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. A bunch of stuff still coming together. You see all the different pieces of the car and everything really, it's almost there. I don't see any reason, like I said, why we shouldn't be on the dyno on Wednesday. We got that scheduled, barring some little things maybe. I don't know, we'll see. But we should be there. So we're looking forward to getting up to PFI speed. All right, so rather than ramble, if you liked the video, make sure you give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. Shoot us a bunch of comments in the comment section. We love talking to everyone. We try and respond to every comment. We do read every comment, so we appreciate your input. If you're not subscribed, get subscribed. We are well, we were like 100 away, but we're about 200 away from 4,500. That is our next giveaway. We do a giveaway every 500 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, get subscribed. Like I said, I'm really disappointed we didn't make the event. Everything I've seen that came out of it was a really good time. It was awesome. There's a lot of coverage. You know, quite a variety of people brought vehicles out. Rob Dahm was there. You know, he did a all-wheel drive burnout in his 4-rotor RX-7. That was sick. BJ Baldwin, Ken Block, they were all out there, and we wish we could have been there with them. And next time. Anyways, so we have a gas pedal, we have a brake pedal, we have hydraulics. So tomorrow we have everything. Get some wheels back on it and start testing it. And like I said, get on the dyno and see how much power it makes. We'll see you next time. Joe's not here, so as always, you get a double fist bump.